RuneScape. One of my most adored and highly played games ever. An absolute classic, which has stood the test of time like no other MMO, with an ardent and bustling community dedicated to the old school nostalgia fest that is what I consider to be the best MMO ever created. Now you might think that is a bold claim looking at these low-res polygons straight from 2003 and its comical music, but RuneScape being the best MMO of all time is both praise and just plain despair. MMOs more and more feel like a dead genre. After phasing in and out of countless MMOs like World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, Final Fantasy 11 and 14, New World, EVE Online, Black Desert, The Old Republic, and many more, RuneScape has always pulled me back for nearly 2 decades, whilst all these other games hardly even interest me at all anymore. Why? So let me give you a rundown of why I think old school RuneScape is still the best MMO in 2023, and the absolute tragedy that is the MMO genre. My first introduction to the game was when I was only 10 years old. A friend from school had told me about this new game that he had found. A game that was free, that you could play in your browser, that you could connect to anyone from all over the world and do virtually anything that you could think of. I thought it was too good to be true, but then when I went home and logged in, I was blown away and overwhelmed by how much information and content there was in the game. Back in 2003, it was rare to find any game with such a large open world, never mind with other players everywhere. This was truly a revolutionary experience to me, and it was also completely free. I was blown away by the choices and interactions you could have with other players, the discovery of what was out there, and days before YouTube, or easy guides detailing all known information about the game. RuneScape was like a Wild West territory with no real rules or boundaries. It seemed limitless to me, and I played the game for countless hours, doing all sorts of things from adventuring, questing with my friends, to just cooking pizzas or fishing by the seaside. The way RuneScape is set up complemented this perfectly. There are no quest markers, no kill 10 of these to get some typical reward and progress to the next area. This was a real RPG where you had to decide what you wanted to do instead of it being spoon-fed. Whether it being a classic adventurer, a mage, dabbling in the huge selection of crafts, or just killing seagulls with your bare hands. The world is filled with lore, and it is consistent like no other MMO I have played. The world is built as though it were a real place, with real people in it, instead of simply hub points scaling upwards in level to give you the next tier of gear, all inserted with the same generic NPCs and vendors. Every quest and location in RuneScape feels unique to itself, making the world feel more authentic. With no clear goal other than to level, everyone does what they want. This laid the framework perfectly for organic storytelling and interactions between the players, whilst everyone was essentially doing the same thing, grinding. In RuneScape, grinding is everything. Probably the biggest resource in RuneScape is time. The value of everything is dependent on how much it takes to get something, and the more time any given item takes to get, the rarer it will be. People find the world so worth investing their time into that the economy for RuneScape Gold converts into real life currency like dollars better than some entire countries today, and at a more stable rate. In other MMOs, time obviously plays an essential role as well, but because the goals are so much more streamlined, such as quest lines, dungeon, raids, all with the goal of unlocking the highest quality of gear, it's always felt more forced rather than organic to me. I've played RuneScape for nearly 20 years, and I have never had the highest tier of armor. I've spent the vast majority of my time in this game doing the opposite of what I do in other MMOs, and that is what makes it stand out so much. The most memorable events I have in this game is not when some new expansion pass or dungeon was announced, but events created by the players. If there is one key feature that sets old school RuneScape apart from other games in the genre, it is the social element. Actually talking to people, having such a great item-based economy, letting you become creative, and seeing who else is out there. I've made so many friends in RuneScape over the years, some who became incredibly close. Hell, I've even had a hookup from RuneScape. At some of the lowest points in my life when I've struggled with loneliness and isolation, I could always go on RuneScape and find a group of people to talk to. That is more than I can say for any social media platform I have used. RuneScape really brings people together in such a fun, light-hearted way. In other games, it's all too common for everything to just feel so dead and hollow. The only thing that keeps people engaged or interested is not the fact that it's a massive multiplayer online game, but the fact that you can grind for endless amount of hours to try and get the highest tier armor, and then there's simply nothing else to do. On other MMOs, there's little incentive to be a community or to build social bonds with other people. Everything's done by the same streamlined marketplaces. Every service can be performed by an NPC, and even the most high tier gears that you might get in raids or dungeons aren't even tradable. So the only way that you can attain things in those games is by doing what the developers want you to do instead of what you want to do with your character. Instead of the world feeling like a genuine place, it feels like it's a representation of the mechanics and where you're being guided to go. It also makes the game's length feel bloated and forced, where I could stop playing old school RuneScape at any time and decide on my own standards, my own ideals, what is finished for me, what is a goal for me. And so, as you go further into those games, you progress into the end game, and you do essentially everything that there is to be done. You realize that you're more of a streamlined object yourself, that you're a number within the machine of the game, and your stats don't have any value outside of the game's mechanics and what it provides. Whilst in old school RuneScape, what you do has an effect with the other players. And so it gives more value to your time because you didn't do it just to make numbers go up, or you didn't do it just for the sake of having the best gear. You did it because you chose to do it and you wanted to do it from the start, not because the game told you to do it, and that's because what the game told you that is what you should aspire to based on its numerical systems. In my opinion, MMOs stand out the best when they embrace the one thing that other games don't have going for them. The fact that you can share a world with thousands of other people at the same time and learn to coexist or become enemies. So yes, while old school RuneScape may be dated, whilst there might be so many aspects to it which are unappealing to people these days, it still does what an MMO should do perfectly, and there has been, in my view, no one that has ever came close to sort of achieving the same feeling that RuneScape did from day one. And that is also the main reason, whilst other games fall and slowly die, old school RuneScape remains alive and active to this day. It has a charming aesthetic which is iconic and unlike anything else around, as well as the soundtrack. Original quests, original locations that all blend into each other seamlessly with a good deal of humour to boot. Tens of thousands of hours of content inside a stable economy that offers the ability to be creative, to make different investments and experiment with the parameters that the community makes themselves. An MMO should offer a fair deal of player freedom without it being easily exploited and without any other player having a clear advantage over someone else, unless they're also willing to invest the same amount of their time as someone else. So while I truly hope that one day a new MMO will come around and remove old school RuneScape from its pedestal, I'm not holding my breath, as I've seen so many attempt it and get nowhere near. As it stands, however, old school RuneScape remains the best MMO ever made and still available to this day. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day.